Thanks, Amy. All right. We're going to give folks maybe 2 minutes to sign on and get in the room here. So glad to see everyone here and joining us on a Saturday for this workshop. While we're waiting, if you want to check in the chat, that would be great. Feel free to share your name, pronouns, where you're from or where you're at geographically right now, and then maybe what brought you here today to start off. Sam, maybe we can type that prompt into the chat.
There's somebody who Sylvia Spalding keeps wanting to enter, and every time I press admit, it won't admit them. Somebody else.
Yeah, I'm in now. I tried different platforms. I found.
Hello, Sylvia. Welcome.
Awesome.
Ooh. Hi, Corbin.
Yeah, let me pull my chat up here too.
Welcome, welcome, everybody. Oh, another Novak. Anne, are we related?
Where do you live?
I live in Baltimore, and that's where the majority of my family is from.
Well, let's follow up.
Okay. Oh, so exciting.
I'm originally from Iowa. I live in Washington State, but this is my mother's name, but it's still family.
Yeah. Oh, let's connect about it. That would be great.
Okay. I noticed that right away.
Yeah. Is that why you came? It's okay if that's true. Welcome, everybody. We are very exciting. If you would, for those of you who have just entered, if you want to say hello in the chat box, maybe offer your name and pronoun and where you are right now. And we'd love to hear why you're here today. Maybe here at the conference, maybe here at this particular workshop, maybe here as in your front porch. Why are you here today?
And we'll give folks maybe just one more minute before I start talking to share in the chat with us. Sam, can I ask you a tech question while we're waiting?
Yes.
Do you see my cursor moving around on the screen? Like when I'm toggling it? Okay. I never know, but now I know. All right. Great. Well, why don't we get started? Please feel free if you're typing something up to say hello to folks in the chat to continue. I'm just gonna kick us off here with a little bit of grounding in why we think we're here today, and then we'll dive in. So my name is Casey Armstrong, and I'm here with my friend and collaborator, Sam Novak. We're really excited to have this time to be here with you today to talk about growing community with whole systems practices. Just really briefly, I am located in Massachusetts on Nipmuc and Pecumtuck land. And Sam, do you want to say your hi and where you're at?
Yes. Hi, I'm Sam Novak. I currently live in Baltimore City on the ancestral land of the Piscataway-Conoy tribe.
Yeah. And Sam and I are co-founders of Loam, which is a small practice that we facilitate as a space to foster collective learning experiences for folks who identify as change makers to practice weaving applied whole systems thinking into our cultures, into our communities, and into our work. So we're really focused on slowing down and scaling deep and, finding the ways that can help us access joy and aliveness in this work. And we're really grounded in intersectional justice, transformative leadership, emergent strategy, and reflexive practice. So if any of those words ring a bell for you or make you feel curious, you're in the right place. So I'm gonna try and move to the next slide here, and my computer apparently it's wheezing at me pretty hard over here, so bear with me while I while it struggles. We wanted to share a couple of goals for our time today to start with. So first, we're hoping that this will be an offering for a community-centered space for reflection, sharing, and connection among all of us. We're hoping to provide key concepts and practices of systems thinking that we can experiment with. And we'll also try to articulate the connection between systems thinking and community building. And then we also wanted to take a minute to review a couple of the WFAN community agreements that really stand out to us and that I think help us kind of set the stage for the kind of workshop we're hoping to have here today. So move up, and be an active inquiry. Be okay with the fact that we can't be articulate all the time. We're very much here about learning in public and showing up as you are. Center a culture of care. And remember that no one knows everything, but together we know a lot. And lastly, I'll just say that everything we're gonna talk about and put on screen and ask you to do with us today is an invitation. So please show up how you are, engage how you wanna engage, find what feels good for you within this offering. And practice self-care. We don't have any timed in breaks, but do, turn your video off and stretch, take a little bio break, do what you need to do to feel comfortable for the next 90 minutes.
With that, I will say that the overview of what today looks like is we're going to do a mix of journaling, a mix of reflective practice, a little bit of sharing. And so we ask again that you get comfortable. And then we also ask that, when it does come time to share with each other, if you are comfortable, turn on your video so that you all can see each other. We are hoping to build a community even in this short period of time online, which are two difficult things to do, online and in a short period. So we're hoping to be able to bring both a sense of community and a sense of cohesiveness to all of you today during our workshop. We're going to start our workshop off with some journaling. So I'm going to ask all of you to grab a writing utensil, pen, pencil, notebook. We're going to do a little breathing exercise together to center ourselves and a little bit of a journal practice. And then we're going to have you guys journal for quite a bit before we jump into groups. So everybody go ahead and grab your journal, grab your writing utensil. If you're doing art instead, whatever it is that you're doing to do some reflection with us today. I invite everybody to gently close your eyes. In whatever way is comfortable, ground your feet. I'm going to invite everybody to take a deep breath in for 5 counts and then a breath out for 6, and we'll do it together. In 3, 4, 5, out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, in 2, 3, 4, 5, out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. On your own. Last round. All right, I invite everybody to open your eyes. You'll have about 2 minutes per question to journal. And the first question is, I want you to consider a specific community you are a part of.
All right, I'm gonna jump in. I think Sam got booted, so I'm hoping she signs back on here soon. But wrap your thoughts up on this first question, and we'll add another one for you. So maybe you were just thinking about your community and who or what is in it. Take a few minutes now and consider who or what isn't in this community and why. What are the criteria for belonging to this group? Again, who or what are not part of this community and why? What are the criteria for belonging? Okay, wrapping up your thoughts on this question, our last question here is, what is essential to the sense of community or the group's identity, without which it would cease to be itself? So again, what is essential to this group's sense of community or identity, without which it would cease to be itself? So you might think about whether there are group values or agreements, any shared goals or purpose, or possibly culture. I'll take a few minutes on this question. All right, take maybe 10 or 15 seconds more to wrap up your thoughts here.
As you're wrapping up the next part, we're going to do a little bit of sharing out before we move on to the next piece. And so for those of you who are able, we ask that you turn your videos on if you're comfortable so that we can see each other as we share a little bit about what we journaled. So taking a look at what you've journaled, what does community mean to you all? What does community mean to this group of folks in this Zoom room at this time? Feel free to answer. If you want to answer, just go ahead and put your finger up and we'll call on you. Feel free to answer, or if you prefer adding it in the chat box, that's perfectly fine too. But what community are you a part of, and what does that community mean to you? Anne, do you want to share?
Yes, I'm a talker, so I'm trying to refine my sharing. I'm a part of two communities. My husband and I fortunately own land in Washington State, only 10 acres, but we are leasing for Latinx farmers. And although we are leasing, we consider them community and are invested in their progress and their families and the betterment for, the greater good. In Iowa, I was inherited land with my sisters, and we are trying to get access to people of color, women, and this is in Northeast Iowa where it's very white. Diversity, we're looking at expanding to community farming in some level, and this has been a traditional corn and soybean. So community, there's also the traditional community that has actually been quite supportive of our conservation efforts. So we found that we had to reach out a lot. It takes time. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Anne. Does anybody else feel called to share what community they're a part of and what it means, what community means to them?
Yeah, I can share. I belong to a community that's not farm related, but this was a good exercise because I do want to build my community farm more. And so I belong to an International Pacific Marine Educators Network. And I think we've been in existence since 2007. And I think a shared mission and vision statement is important. Also, regular and frequent contact and sharing our personal as well as our professional updates on our life and what's going on with us. And bonus, we've always, since the beginning, because we're spread across the Pacific, have had participation via satellite communication, but our biennial conferences, being able to visit each other's place of work and livelihood, I think bonds us even stronger.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Does maybe one more person feel called to share to the group before we move to a definition?
I can share.
Thank you, Nora.
Yeah, no problem. I guess the community I was thinking of is the community farm that's managed by the nonprofit that I work for. But we garden with lots of folks who are in the immigrant and refugee community from all over the world. And so I was thinking a lot about just our stated values that bring us all together: stewardship, interdependence, hospitality is one of my favorite ones. We talk about holding space to be guest and host kind of at the same time. But I think really like what defines our community is a love of food and sharing food ways.
Beautiful. Thank you all so much for sharing. What fascinating groups and communities you all are a part of. I mean, we're all part of so many communities at once, right? Like it's sometimes hard to bound which community we're a part of and which one we're thinking because they're all so connected. And it's really nice as an exercise when we're trying to think about how we impact our communities to figure out a way to bound those so that we can not become overwhelmed with, oh no, how am I going to make an impact? How am I going to make a difference when you can start to see those boundaries around them first. Casey, will you move?
Sorry.
So you all named what community is. You all understand it and can define it on your own. And community is, yeah, it is a struggle, right? Like that's the biggest struggle, is they're all connected. And so it's hard to say this is the community. And it's a really good practice as you move through it, because then it becomes too overwhelming to feel like you have any agency in it or that you can make an impact, especially those of us who care very deeply about making transformative change. Were you going to say something, Jess? You just agreeing. Thank you. So, Casey, I can't see the slide deck, but that doesn't mean you don't have it up. Perfect. Thank you. So you all nailed the definition. Here is a definition, right? Creating the conditions for belonging to foster resilient relationships, creativity, shared power, and leadership. And really what that means is a shift from transactional thinking over to relational thinking. So networks, building organizations, things of that nature.
Are we ready to move on, Sam, from community? Yeah. Is there more you want to add?
Yeah.
All right, so we're now going to introduce the idea of whole systems thinking. So kind of just holding in mind this conversation that we had about community for a second and shifting gears for a moment here. We wanted to briefly introduce this. And, this is a huge field of, systems thinking is a huge field that we're really just going to dip our toes into today. And actually, I'd love to know if folks want to write into the chat whether you've heard of this term before, if you're familiar with it, what experience you have or relationship you have to the idea of systems thinking as we go. I'll put my chat up here. But when Sam and I talk about it, we really talk about it as a method for understanding how things are related and how those things interact with and influence one another within a greater whole. So you could apply systems thinking to a community, to a farm. There are so many different ways, to yourself, understanding yourself as a system. There are so many different things you can conceive of as systems and when you're thinking about them from this framework, offers basically a different way to see them, right? So for those of us who grew up in the Western world or moved through the Western world, we're very used to mechanistic thinking and linear thinking, which really emphasizes, that we're all discrete and disconnected. And this visual here, we love this because it just demonstrates the differences so clearly, right? From seeing things as siloed, reducing things to their component parts, analyzing things, isolating things. Systems thinking invites us to look for interconnectedness, look for circularity, look for emergence, right? Kind of the idea that the sum of things is, I can never say this right, guys. The sum, Sam, help me, what's the saying? the whole is more than the sum of the parts.
Greater than the sum of the parts.
I can never get that out smoothly, but I should learn how to. So here's just an entryway into thinking about what some of the shifts in mindsets could be when you're switching into systems thinking mindsets. A quote that I love from Donella Meadows, who you might know if you're familiar with systems thinking as one of the big thinkers in this field, is, you think that because you understand one, you must therefore understand two, because one and one make two. But you forget you must also understand and I love this. To me, this is like essential systems thinking, is what is the and, what's happening in between the parts that we might miss if we constantly try to break things down and only look at the parts, only look at the separateness. So like I said, we think that this is an amazing tool for looking at and understanding groups, communities that we're a part of. And one major shift it requires of us to be able to look at groups from a systems thinking perspective is to begin to see ourselves as part of the system and to be able to zoom in and out in that perspective. So there's a great analogy that, if you're part of a group, part of an organization, a team, a family, there's one way of looking at it, which is from the dance floor, right? If you think about everybody as being on the same dance floor together, you might be able to look around and see what's going on from that purview. But systems thinkers often also go up onto a balcony and look at that scene from above, right? And the switching back and forth between those two perspectives is really a key systems thinking skill. So we wanted to invite you to do a little bit more reflection now from that perspective of yourself on the balcony, kind of reflecting on, again, on the same group that you were just considering for the previous exercise. So let's get back into journaling mode, maybe shake it out, you know, feel where your body is in touch with your chair, pick up your pen, you know, tune back into your paper. We've got just a couple more prompts for y'all. The first one is calling back to mind the community that you were thinking of in the first exercise. How do you show up in this community? What role do you play or want to play? So take just a couple minutes to think on this. How do you show up in this community? What role do you play or want to play? All right, 10 more seconds with this question. Okay. Now, considering your role, take a few minutes now to think on what are the impacts or influences you can make or do make in this community. What are the impacts or influences that you make in this community or have the potential to?
Amy, if you are there and listening, will you please remake me a host? Thank you.
Okay, wrap up your thoughts on this last prompt. And then what we're going to do next is actually send you off for a parent share. So we're going to put you in a breakout room with one other person and give you 5 minutes to just say hello, meet someone else who's here, and share your reflections from this last journaling exercise. And then we'll come back together and we'll do kind of another popcorn round of big group discussion. If you need any help, there'll be the ask for help button, I believe. Not sure. I think Huva will still give us that button. So you should be able to summon one of us into your room if you need. And
you'll have about 5 minutes or so to chat with each other. So be aware of the time. And again, if you need help, let us know. Happy chatting.
all right. Sam, do you see someone named Daniel who's, oh, there.
I just reassigned.
And Morgan, are you there?
I'm moving her. Morgan, I'm going to put you in with a larger group. So
All right, everyone's got at least one other person now.
Mhm.
Thanks, Sam.
You're welcome. All
Hi,
right. What'd you say?
I said, oi, tech.
Right? Oh boy, that was a fun one. I think that's the most tech issues we've had in a single facilitation ever.
Yep,
Oh boy.
nicely navigated.
Yeah, thank you for stepping in. Would you like me to put the question in there to broadcast the message to them? What's the question we're working on right now?
Oh, just, I think, share your reflections with your partner.
Okay.
Yeah.
We don't need to do that. They know that. It wasn't a specific question.
What's next? Okay, this is right when we come back, right?
Yes. Should we give them a minute to share out if they wanted to share what they talked about in their groups?
Yeah, I'll turn the share off for now.